Alright, so I don't have a script for this one. This one's more of a spur of the moment type deal. Here's what I have to say. Bethesda Softworks, Bethesda Studios, Bethesda the game company, right, will never ever release a critically acclaimed video game again. Now, I want to be very specific with what I mean by this, but just hear me out, right? They're going to release games that make money, right? They've already gotten their fingers and their fucking shit into TV shows and all that sort of deal, right? But when it comes to, the bread and butter, right, of gamer history, right? You got your classic, amazing titles, right? Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, right? Morrowind, right? And if you wanna start going further back in time, you can. But it was a real powerhouse there for quite a few years, and then Skyrim came out in 2011, and for all of those of you who haven't played the game, right? That's like probably half the viewers, and the other half have played the game. But let's just, hear me out here for a second. Emil Pagliaro, the lead writer for that game, sucks at his job. Alright, he's a shitty writer. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He has no idea how to write a fucking story of anything, ever. The story for Skyrim is what I would like to call grand ideas executed in a lackluster way. There really was nothing special about Skyrim, right? You had a lot of people who enjoyed it, who liked it, right? You had a lot of people who enjoyed Michael Kirkbride's writing, right, on the franchise, right, and the lore of that game series, right? It was very, very, very in-depth and very worth watching, right? Worth paying attention to, there were some really cool ideas. But, after a certain point, after that year, I would say, in the studio's history, they became incapable of writing anything worth, enjoying. Skyrim came out in 2011, right? It's 2026. Okay, it's been 15 years. Alright, when was the last time you heard of a major blockbuster hit title, like critical masterpiece, right? Like makes more money than anything else. When was the last time you heard of something like that getting 15 years before its sequel? And that's rhetorical, right? I'm sure there's plenty of examples, but the biggest example that comes to mind when I think of that scenario, right, is, the fucking Half-Life 2 going on to Half-Life 3 situation, right? And it's like, I was a teenager when that was happening. I was a teenager when people were getting sick and tired of it, and they were getting kind of, it was old. It was old having to hear about this studio that wasn't going to figure its fucking life out, but when you have a game, right, this is major blockbuster, and in this instance it's Half-Life 2, right? When you have this game, and then everybody loves it, and then everybody's hanging on the edge of their seats, right? It's like, that doesn't last forever, obviously. Anybody could tell you that, but you can't just have people sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for this next game to come around, and then it never does. People get sick and tired of it. People get old. It gets old, right? And it's like, and in the end, the reason that Half-Life 3 probably never became a thing, right, is because they waited too long to make it. They knew that they wouldn't be able to meet the hype, to meet the expectation, so that held them off in the short term, right, after Half-Life 2 came out, and then it just sort of fizzled out. People people forgot about that game. People forgot about that series, right? And it's like, people don't forget, but like the cultural public consciousness of what we want to see come out next, that it does get forgotten. And then and if you really want to make this argument, you can. But the Fallout franchise, right? Fallout 4 came out in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. Fallout 4 was the biggest travesty of writing I've ever seen. It was an embarrassment. The guy who wrote that thing should be embarrassed. He should have been fired. Alright? It was a travesty. I don't want to get into what it is, like these different franchises, right? But I will just say this, okay? And I've been a fan of these games, of this studio, for a long, long time. I was a fan of this studio well before it got its own fucking TV show, and I've been wearing this goddamn sweater, right, since I picked it up years and years and years ago at the second ever Fallout New Vegas convention in Good Springs, right? I'm a massive, massive fan of the franchise, and frankly, it hurts to see things that you love just get shit on constantly. Now that is to say, you know, who am I to be shitting on these people for making these games, for doing this job, for, you know, trying to do the best that they can, right, and make a lot of money? Who am I? And I'm not anybody. Let's be clear here, right? I'm just kind of a chump who feels as though they could be doing better, right? But that is not the current case anymore, because I don't feel like they could be doing better. I feel like they've lost their opportunity now. I feel like if they had an opportunity to steer the boat, steer the Titanic away from the iceberg that would crash into it and sink the ship, I think that was probably, that was a few years back. The last point where they could have done that. But I will say, I'll just leave with two more final points. Starfield was a fucking disgrace, right? It was a shitty game. It was a bad game from that studio. And they were expecting quite a lot more player base, quite a lot more, of a critical acclaim. They were expecting more than what they got, but not just a little bit more, vastly more. All right, Todd Howard wanted, Bethesda at large wanted Starfield to be the third rung in that, it wanted to be the third of their big three. Right? But they don't have a big three. They have two. They have a big two, the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. If they were capable of making that big three, that big third, I just, it didn't happen. Right? Starfield is going to be remembered as one of the key factors in why Studio ended up bombing to death, right? Like, just being shit. How many years ago has it been now since they did that release at E3? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember E3? I remember E3. Elder Scrolls 6, and they had that slow panning shot. I'll probably play it. That was so long ago, right? That was Oblivion, the game, came out in 2006, and before 7 years had elapsed, Skyrim had come out, right? We got an announcement in 2019, 7 years ago, and as far as anybody who's not directly in the industry knows, we are just now entering, like, real production, right? And it makes sense, I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, they've been working on Starfield, they've been working on Fallout, right? They got the new TV show, right? That fucking travesty of a TV show. Yeah, I think that's about it. I will say this. The new Bethesda games are going to make money. Right? They're not going to be financial failures, all right? Nobody expects that, all right? And if you expect those games to be financial failures, then, maybe, I don't know, touch grass or something. I don't know, okay? But they are going to be critical failure points in the history of this studio. I mark my fucking words. The Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, right, are so far off down the line, they're so far away, that by the time those two games get released, the entire industry will have changed 2 or 3 times over. I really, really, really love Fallout New Vegas. It's, in my opinion, the best written RPG ever. And you know, anybody can have their thing that they hold up as, you know, better and above everything else, but you know, I put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game, and I put dozens of hours into the Elder Scrolls franchise, and to see this thing that was such a huge part of my childhood, such a huge part of my teenage years, to see it kind of just suffocate and weasel out and fizzle out and die that way, right? It's pretty lame, you know. And I guess I will say this, and this is the last thing I'll say. I was a fucking fan of that franchise before it was cool, before people knew what it was. And I see these kids out here these days. They wear the shirts, they wear the merch, right? They haven't played any of the original games, right? And it's like, this is an opinion I had when I was playing Fallout New Vegas, back before Fallout 4 came out, right? And it's all like, oh, these people, they're just playing, you know, the new game. They haven't played 1 or 2, right? It's like, yeah, what a far sight we've been from there. Like, how far we've come from that point, you know, where if you in 2026 go back and play Fallout 1 and 2, you have my personal respect, at least in games of or at least in matters of taste, if you manage to finish them, because they're great games in their own right. Yeah, I believe that's it. Bethesda will never again be one of the heavy hitters of the industry.